Welcome everyone, and thank you so much for being with me on this journey. I am Diana Popa, business coach, and today my special guest is Tanya Baldwin. After suffering burnout from her position as director of nursing and healing her trauma, Tanya's passion turned to helping others with mental health. Now she works as a trauma wellness coach and helps people manage mental health and build the resiliency toolkits. Welcome, Tanya. Thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Tell us more about your story and what happened, how you went through, why you went through the burnout, and how you managed to overcome it, and then start helping other people going through the same situations or circumstances.
Perfect. Well, I had a extremely traumatic childhood that I had disassociated from. So even though I experienced depression and anxiety on a daily basis, I wouldn't actually acknowledge that I was in any depressive state unless it was some level of crisis, like the end of a relationship or big transitional thing. But I was always dealing with elements of depression and anxiety. And I really disassociated from all of my trauma by focusing on education and work. It was just where I found safety, I guess, when you're at home and, you're dealing with elements of abuse, whether it's physical, sexual, emotional, mental, or financial in those capacities, or even neglect. Sometimes that home becomes the school because, if you're there and you're getting that little proverbial pat on the head, it's better than, what you're getting at home. So I focused on my education and on my job. And, a lot of us have what we would term to be busyholics, workaholics. We always have to plan out our entire day, have things going all the time because we don't want to sit with that silence or sit with ourselves and sit with our experiences and our emotions. So I was one of those people, and I have 9 years post-secondary education. And, I went from what would be considered to be poverty, welfare state, to being educated and the director of nursing. So that's a significant climb through the ladder. Oftentimes, if you start off in poverty, you might, the first generation might, get employment. The second generation might get college. The third generation, maybe at that point, they start looking at university. But I skipped all of that and went straight. I'm going to just be the person that goes to university. So I worked really hard to get to the point where I was within my career. But that stress, unfortunately, that spending all that time in that chronic level of stress and not acknowledging my own mental health and not acknowledging my trauma had left me with this high level of stress within my life that I was dealing with on a consistent basis. And it started to manifest in disease and illness. So I would be getting sick constantly with little colds or flus. If anything came around, I pretty much got it. And then I started getting more and more illnesses that were kind of unexplained. And eventually I got diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, which was consistent. I have plaque in the regions where MS resides. And I went through about a year of working with that. And my job had, hit the epitome of stress at that point. So I was going through it with this diagnosis of MS, thinking that that's what I had. But by the time I got tired of dealing with the constant flare-ups and relapses that I was experiencing with my MS, and I decided to take a leave of absence for medical reasons because I needed to get in control of my MS is what I thought. I needed to get a treatment plan in, and I needed to discuss with doctors how to best go about managing my symptoms. So when I took the leave of absence, what ended up happening was that it triggered a breakdown. And that breakdown ended up putting me into panic disorder. So every day I spent being in a state of panic and fear, and I wasn't sleeping very well because all of my traumas were pretty much being ghosts in my day, waking me up with nightmares, or what I termed black mares, because I didn't really have pictures because they were repressed memories, but I would have all the fear that was associated with the experiences that I'd been through. So I took it on myself as kind of like a challenge, and it probably fit well with me because of the whole how I drove through education and being busy and always doing something. So I took on all levels of therapy that I could. I was seeing a psychiatrist, a psychologist, a neuropsychiatrist. I did rehabilitation, occupational health therapy, anything that I could. I did group programs, and then I researched in my own time. With my nursing background, I mean, I had knowledge of mental health and depression, anxiety, all of that stuff. But it's different when it's an intimate knowledge of it, when you're experiencing it within yourself, and the education that you get really kind of glosses over it. It doesn't really delve too deep into, where does it come from or what can you do to treat it. So within that time, I healed my own traumas, and I came up with, through all of the stuff that I was doing with my group programming and with doing my therapy programming, that in combination with, all the reading that I was doing, the webinars I was taking, the courses that I joined, and all of the knowledge that I gathered in the trauma aspect, I just became really passionate about it because I realized that healing is absolutely possible, that there are far more people that are suffering than we give credit for, and that there's probably a lot of people out there that were like me, that didn't really want to realize or recognize or give credit to what they had experienced and how it's impacting their day-to-day life, because they become accustomed to it. Your body really spends time going, what is familiar, what is unfamiliar? Well, if trauma is familiar to you, then peace and quiet and calm and love and all of those things can be unfamiliar to you. So you want to stay in that state of familiar, and so your body actually gets kind of addicted to those stress hormones. So it becomes really your normal. And it takes some time to learn that that's not necessarily the case, and that there's something that you can do to get past it.
Thank you so much, Tanya. And thank you for making yourself vulnerable, because I know this is not necessarily an easy way of putting everything out there. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And I would like to ask you, because you mentioned that it's something that maybe it's not familiar, and we are staying in that state, even if we are not well. And I know I have many people around me who are just choosing to stay in that state of whether it's a relationship which doesn't go well, whether it's a job or a career, whether it's, the environment which is not appropriate to what they would like to have, and yet they are not getting out of that state. Do you know if there is a technique that can help them to move out or to identify, first of all, that they are not well, and then to get out of that situation?
Well, we spend, I think that people, when they look at things like depression and anxiety, they look to the top cases, right? That person that really can't function. And to them, that's depression and anxiety. Somebody who's, so depressed that they can't get out of bed or they can't function in society. And that's not the case of, that's not the only way that depression and anxiety manifests, is in that like complete crippling state. A lot of us are high functioning with anxiety, or we're functioning anyway. We're just functioning in our lives, in our day-to-day lives, existing with the states that we're in, and we don't even, like you said, or I've said, we don't even recognize it. When you start to look at, things like consistent worrying, that needing to be busy all the time, the consistently worrying about your future, or even ruminating about past events that were really, really poor. Those are ways that the depression and anxiety manifest in our day-to-day life. And when you feel just really fatigued and that loss of joy within your life, and it can be small, but that can be a manifestation of depression in its smallest forms. It's just that not feeling happy within the current life that you're living in. And really taking control of your life can be as simple as looking at what is the picture that you hold about yourself, or that you hold about the day that you would like to experience, and how much does that align with what you're doing or how you see yourself currently. And for me, I recognize that I had a very poor picture of myself in my mind. And for example, I like to use this one when I do my courses, I like to explain how if you're sitting there in your mind and you think that you're overweight or you think that you're lazy, and that's the picture that you hold of yourself in your mind, then what motivation do you have to take on eating correctly and doing an exercise program, right? It's going to take motivation. And if the first step in your mind is already a negative picture that doesn't align with what you want, then how are you going to drive for that? So first is looking at yourself and how you see yourself and how you want to see yourself. What is it that you want to be like in your life? Do you want to be fit, right? Do you want to be successful? What does that mean to you? Just really looking and evaluating where you are currently and where you would like to be. And when you get that picture of where you'd like to be, that's the only picture you're allowed to hold on to anymore. And when you put that picture in your mind and you're like, okay, I'm fit, I'm successful, I'm happy, this is how I look in my mind, and I'm going to strive towards that image of myself. So I found that to be the best way to override that existing paradigm that you have in your mind.
Thank you so much, Tanya. Something I experienced myself, and I know that I had a lot of everything that you are describing, like this busyness and always trying to be the best and really working very, very hard and not even realizing what was happening to me, that I was caught in a kind of vicious circle and I was not getting out. And whenever I was well, then somehow my brain was taking me back into that state of not being well. And my question would be, how do we maintain those positive thoughts, that vision on how we would like our life to turn and how we would like to actually live? Because I know that even if you go there for a moment and you have this excitement and enthusiasm, your brain may take you back again. So how do we maintain actually those positive thoughts and emotions?
So I created for myself anyway, I have what is called my mental health maintenance plan. And it's a series of activities that I know that I have to have as part of my day that are healthy for me, that are not what society maybe would classify as, top dog status stuff. But that's the thing is, what are we living for? If you're living a life based on, oh, my dad said that I have to be a top level executive, that's success, right? But if that doesn't align with my own personal values, then I'm driving forward for something that somebody else has derived as important for me, so that I'm not going to be aligned in myself. So by looking at what you want, what you find in yourself is where you want to be, whether that's with your body, with your mind, with your spirit, with your job, with your family, with your relationships. When you plan that out and determine what that is that you want, then you write down your daily activities that you have to do on a consistent basis in order to maintain or to get to that point. And then you just make sure that you're doing them. So for me, I know I have to have a meditation practice. I know that I have to have some level of movement within my day-to-day life, whether that's an actual exercise program or just getting up and dancing for a little bit. I know that, I have to have a gratitude practice. Gratitude is such a huge practice that can benefit anybody's life and make it so much better. To be able to recognize those little things that are in your life that really are important. Like I can be grateful that I have the plants that I have. It's something so small, but they bring me so much joy having a bunch of plants in my house, having that life there, right? So it's really defining what to you is important, what to you looks like a happy, healthy life, regardless of what anyone has told you has to be there, right? And I think that's a lot of times is we're so aligned with what people have told us we should do, or we could do, or we would do, that we're not looking at what we actually want, or what our life is like, or what our likes or dislikes are. If you think that the only way to be happy is to be achieving, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, but that doesn't align with who you are, then every day you're getting up in misalignment and you're doing a life that somebody else is tailoring for you, and that's never going to create a happy, healthy life for yourself.
Thank you, Tanya. Thank you so much. I love this. Absolutely. I fully agree with you. And I would like to ask you, because you mentioned the past, the environment, and then building a better future for ourselves. How do you think that our past is influencing our future? Or is there a way to accept our past, to accept that our past actually brought us where we are today, and it's also the one that is helping us in certain ways to build our future? Is there a way to let go if there was trauma, as you mentioned, or if there were situations that hurt us, and how do we do that?
So there's a couple of ways that I've went about that. One is I look at those experiences that you've had. I look at it as, today I am this logical adult, but when those traumas happened, most times we're, if it's happened when you're a child, so then I was that small child. And there's all this talk about your inner child. So I like to parent my inner child with my adult logical self now. And what I do is I go back into the past when those traumatic experiences happened, and I say to myself, what did that child need at that point that they didn't get? Maybe I needed good food. So at this time in my life, I'm going to provide myself with good food. Maybe at that point in time, they needed safety or security. So I'm going to make sure that I'm providing safety and security to myself now. Maybe they needed that love, that kindness, that compassion. So I'm going to hold myself with kindness and compassion as an adult. The other part is I really became obsessed with the present, because most of the time we create our own suffering, and we create our suffering by staying in the past or going into the future. And we're not in those areas going, oh, what was the best thing that happened to me when I was growing up? I'm just going to remember all the highlights. And we're not looking to the future going, well, what are the best things that are going to come towards me? We're always looking at the negative. We have that beautiful negative lens. So we're always looking at what was the worst things that happened to me as I grew up, and also what's the worst case scenario about what's coming, right? That's what we're all worried about. If I worry about all the worst things that can possibly happen, maybe I can somehow avoid it. But all we do is taint today. Like, we actually put ourselves through suffering in our day-to-day lives because of worrying about the stuff that's coming at us or the stuff that we've already experienced that's negative. So I became obsessed with the present because, one, the present is the only moment that you can change anything, right? I can't do anything about what I perceive is coming at me, just like I can't go back in time and change anything that's already happened. The only thing that I can do is affect change in this very moment. So by staying in this moment, I eliminate the suffering that I'm causing in my own mind from those two pulls into the negative realms of the past or the future, by staying in the present. And I take control of my life because it is the only time that I can actually affect change. So being obsessed with the present was a really big thing, and holding, myself through those traumatic experiences that I've encountered. And I also found, having a really strong affirmation practice is huge, because we don't realize how much of our programming or how much of what we're doing today is based on subconscious beliefs that we have in our mind that exist because of things that people said to us. So for me, I was told my whole life, you can't sing. You can't carry a tune in a bucket. Oh, stop singing. You're hurting my ears. Parents thinking that they're being funny or whatever. But in the end, I took with me that I couldn't sing and I shouldn't sing. And when I was doing my therapy, there's one part of the treatment modalities is the talk of polyvagal theory. And your vagus nerve it's the wanderer. So it wanders, it's the largest nerve in your body, and it runs and it connects all your organs, and, it's really big. And so there's a lot of therapy that gets done with the vagus nerve. But one of the things is singing, the vibrations that get created in your chest, that vibration actually disrupts the energy that's contained. So it can help to move stored energy out of your body. So I took on singing as a therapy thing. It was my sing it out. I was just going to sing it out. And when I started doing that, I've improved, and now I can honestly say that I can sing. I mean, I'm not going to have a record deal anytime soon, but I can at least sing to the point where people shouldn't be offended if I'm singing in public with them. They should be like, she can sing okay. And, but it was that subconscious program that I just couldn't sing. So I wouldn't even try to sing. So it took me just saying, you know, I'm just going to do what I want to do for fun with nothing tied to it. I'm not putting a weight on it. And we do that a lot. Like I draw as well. Now, if I draw with the concept of how can I make money off of this? How can I capitalize off of this? Well, then it's going to really demotivate me long term, because I would look at that person. They drew this like person that looks like real, like it looks like a photograph. I can't do that. So then I wouldn't do it. But if we just start taking off that weight of it has to bring us some kind of money, or there has to be some, you know, fame or fortune that exists because of everything that we do, and we just do it sheer for the joy of doing it, we can really, really enrich our lives.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Tanya. And I know that everyone has his or her own thing to become happier. And I heard a lot from our coaches on what exactly they are doing. And I would like to ask you, because you mentioned about being present in your life, that you are focused on really staying present, not going to the future and not going to the past. How do you do that? Are there any techniques that we can all apply?
Yes. So I do on a weekly basis through, I have a Facebook group, and through that Facebook group, I teach these techniques weekly, and I just keep repeating it weekly. So I get to practice them all the time as I'm demonstrating them. But realistically, if you look at, there's a technique, it's called the 4-element mindfulness technique. And it's really good because it has, you know, the elements that remind you of what you could be doing at a certain time. So the earth element reminds you to ground. When we ground into our body, and I say this all the time, your body doesn't time travel. Only your thoughts do. Your body is always in the present moment. So when you ground into your body, you become present. So you can ground into your body in a number of ways, whether it's by actually closing your eyes and envisioning roots growing into the earth, but you can do it as simply as just feeling your body, experiencing my body touching the chair that I'm sitting on, or, you know, can I feel the clothing on my body? Can I feel my hair? You can focus on one part of your body, looking at your hands being open as receptive, and closed how it feels powerful, and open as it's receptive, and closed being powerful. Just focusing on any part of your body brings you into the present moment because of your body. You can invoke your senses in multiple different ways in which you can expand into the present moment by saying things like, if I look with my eyes and I describe what's in front of me, but with that real depth of description. So what is the pattern? What is the texture? What is the material? What is its use? How big is it? How much does it weigh? So really get descriptive with it. You know, there's the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique, which is again another cueing system where it says find 5 things you can see, 4 things that you can touch, 3 things that you can hear, 2 things that you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste. Grounds you into the present moment. With the earth, or with that 4-element mindfulness technique, the second element is breathing. And when we focus on our breathing, again, our breathing's occurring in the present moment. So when we're focused on our breathing, we are in that present moment. And I did in the beginning, because it was, you know, really hard. My brain was definitely on its runaway train all the time. So I'd always be going, stop. And I would envision that stop sign in my mind, just this big red stop sign. And I would just, anytime I started getting off on one of the 2 poles, either delved into the past or the future, I'd stop, and then I would ground into my body, and I would breathe. And I would just breathe in and lengthen that breath, like really nice, slow, deep, lengthened breath, feel my body, and just stay present in that moment. So that's, you know, a few different ways that you can definitely get present in the moment.
Thank you so much, Tanya. I love that, because I know that I am always going in the future, but generally I'm going in a positive way. But then I realize that I sometimes forget to be in the present. And even when I walk in nature, for example, I am constantly thinking about ways and strategies of how to improve the business, how to move forward. And then I'm like, okay, but I'm not present. I am here in nature to enjoy my life and not to be in the future. So definitely, yes. I'm going to try all of this. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
And doing mindful walks is a huge thing. Like when you go for a walk, before you start out, think about, I'm going to look for a certain shape, or I'm going to look for a certain color, or I'm just going to listen to the sounds that I'm hearing as I'm walking, because it's absolutely essential to have those moments of being just present and enjoying what's happening. Time goes by so much faster when we're not spending it in the actual moment.
I will try that. Thank you so much, Tanya. I would like to close our interview today by asking you, who are you serving and how can people contact you?
So I'm helping anyone and everyone. I call it my puppies. My puppies are the people that I get from, just on the internet through Facebook or any of the other social media avenues, who connect with me, and I help them with a little bit of, tips or techniques that can benefit them. I have my Calm Spaces workshop that I do on a weekly basis, but you can connect with me through either Tanya Baldwin on Facebook or through Mind, Body, Spirit Healthy, which is my company that's across the board through the different social media avenues. That's where you can find me with that. And I also work at a retreat, like it's a mental health and addictions rehabilitation inpatient retreat. So you can actually work with me in person, delving in on a 5-week program. So it's a lovely retreat on the shores of Rice Lake in Ontario. We do lots of activities. You can even go snowshoeing with me or kayaking if the weather permits. So lots of different fun that can be had for sure.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Tanya, once again for being today with me, for sharing all your knowledge and valuable life lessons that you went through and that you overcame, actually. And this is something that I always applaud, because I find it very brave to have in front of me people who went through so much struggle and they managed to overcome it. Thank you so much for being today with me.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
And for those of you listening to us, stay connected, because there is so much more to come.